you want to know Apostle Paul's one thing to living a victorious life? I mean, this man wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. He went through extraordinary persecution. He was imprisoned, repeatedly flogged, and beaten as well as stoned. And yet his letters are still speaking to us some 2,000 years later. So what was this one thing? Paul is single-minded when he says in Philippians chapter 3, verses 13 to 14, "But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." This passage has inspired me for decades. Every time I read it, it speaks to me again. The imagery is from a race, drawn from the key verb, I press on, meaning to chase, run after, pursue. Apostle Paul knew you can't move forward when you're looking back. And there was a lot behind him that could have potentially held him back. Not just all his amazing credentials as a leader, a Pharisee, but the fact that his initial rejection of Jesus as the Messiah led him to believe that he needed to persecute the followers of Jesus to stop the spread of the gospel. He devoted his days to terrorizing Jesus' followers. He stood by at the stoning of Stephen. But God, on the way to Damascus, his persecution project is spectacularly thwarted. God broke in. Paul, the man who imprisoned and killed Christians, was now one of them, and defending the faith he tried to destroy. Now, if he can move forward through Jesus, so can we. For me personally, as much as I can remember the joys and victories of my past, I can also remember the failures which mark my journey. But we must surrender our past to Jesus, the failures and the successes. Paul's statement to the Philippians gives us that action which is essential for us, forgetting what lies behind. Paul doesn't look back. He realized he hadn't arrived at his destination but was just getting started. So am I. I'm just getting started. Forgetting what's behind doesn't mean it never existed, but we choose not to dwell on the past, set up camp and live there. We choose instead to look forward toward the goal line. A runner in a race doesn't keep looking back at who is behind him, otherwise he'll trip and fall over. Instead, he is intent upon the goal up ahead. How many people do you know seem to live their life looking backward? They keep track of their losses, their regrets and failures. It's no surprise they become stuck and stop moving forward. Thank God for Jesus and his forgiveness. In Christ, we can find forgiveness for our own failings, and at any time, with just a prayer, Jesus can help us move forward again. If you watch runners in a marathon, you will see that as the leading runners approach the goal line, they will lean forward. It's the most extreme extension of the body that wins the race. It's this massive leaning into the goal line. Paul is referring to his flat-out commitment to see this through to the end. He will go to any length to win the race. Paul is pressing on towards his goal. Jesus Christ is Paul's prize. To know him, be found in him, living a life honoring of him. So no matter where you are in the race, let go of the past and take the hand of Jesus and press on, eyes fixed on him, the author and perfecter of your faith.